In the heart of a quiet, idyllic town named Ravenswood, nestled between ancient forests and rolling hills, an eerie chill descended. It was a town that seemed untouched by time, with cobblestone streets, historic buildings, and friendly neighbors who greeted each other by name. But beneath the surface, a sinister force was stirring. It began with Mrs. Johnson, a widow living alone in a cozy cottage on the outskirts of town. One crisp autumn morning, her neighbors noticed her absence. They had seen her sweeping her porch just a day before, but now her cottage stood silent and empty. Concerned, they knocked on her door, but there was no answer. Peering through the windows, they saw no sign of her, not even a stray cat seeking shelter. The news of Mrs. Johnson's disappearance spread quickly through Ravenswood, casting a dark shadow over the town. The authorities were called in, and an extensive search was launched. But there were no clues, no signs of struggle, and no trace of Mrs. Johnson. She had simply vanished into thin air. Whispers began to circulate among the townsfolk, and unease settled in the hearts of Ravenswood's residents. It was as if the very ground they walked on had opened up and swallowed Mrs. Johnson whole. But she would not be the last to disappear. As days turned into weeks, more inexplicable disappearances occurred. First, it was young Tommy, who had been playing near the forest's edge, his laughter echoing through the trees. Then, it was the baker, Mr. O'Connor, who had gone to fetch a fresh batch of flour from his mill and never returned. The list of the missing grew longer, and the town's once peaceful streets became haunted by their absence. Rumors and theories abounded. Some believed it was the work of a malevolent spirit that lurked in the nearby woods, while others whispered about a secret society operating in the shadows. Fear clung to the townspeople like a second skin, and a palpable sense of dread hung in the air. A group of concerned citizens, led by John, a retired detective, and Sarah, the town's librarian with a penchant for solving mysteries, formed an unofficial investigation team. They pored over maps, interviewed witnesses, and delved into the histories of the missing, searching for any common threads that might provide a clue. Their efforts, however, led them only to dead ends. The disappearances appeared entirely random, with no discernible patterns or connections. It was as if the town itself had become a labyrinth, its walls shifting and rearranging, obscuring the truth. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sarah stumbled upon an old leather-bound book in the town's archives. It was a journal, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and handwritten notes. As she translated the archaic text, a chilling revelation unfolded. The journal belonged to a former resident of Ravenswood, a recluse named Elias Blackwood, who had lived on the outskirts of town. According to his writings, he had become obsessed with a hidden gateway to another realm that he believed lay within the depths of the nearby forest. Elias's entries grew increasingly erratic, filled with tales of shadowy figures that moved independently as if guided by a sinister will of their own. He described how these living shadows had whispered to him in the dead of night, promising knowledge and power beyond imagination. It was clear that Elias had become unhinged, and the journal abruptly ended with a single sentence: "They are watching me." The discovery of Elias Blackwood's journal sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. She shared it with John and the rest of the investigation team, and they decided to venture into the forest, hoping to uncover the truth behind the disappearances and the enigma of the living shadows. The forest was dense and foreboding, its towering trees casting long shadows that seemed to dance in the dappled sunlight. The air grew colder as they ventured deeper, and the usual sounds of birds and insects fell silent. It was as if the very heart of the forest held its breath, waiting. As they explored, the group encountered strange phenomena. Trees seemed to shift positions, and the path they had followed and was now obscured by underbrush. Sarah's compass spun wildly, unable to find a true direction, and their sense of time became distorted. Hours turned into days, or so it seemed, and they had to ration their meager supplies. Whispers filled the air, unintelligible but undeniably sinister. Sarah began to feel a presence, as though unseen eyes watched their every move. One by one, the group members began to succumb to the eerie influence of the forest. They grew distant and paranoid, their conversations filled with hushed arguments and accusations. John, the former detective, became obsessed with finding the elusive gateway described in Elias's journal, convinced it held the key to their salvation. As their journey deeper into the forest continued, it became clear that something malevolent lurked within. Shadows no longer danced at the periphery of their vision. They moved with purpose, slithering and weaving through the trees. They took on shapes, humanoid and grotesque, and seemed to mock the explorers with their silent laughter. The forest itself seemed to come alive, the very trees contorting and reaching out like gnarled hands. Sarah's sense of reality began to unravel, and she struggled to discern the boundaries between the natural world and the supernatural. It was in the midst of this descent into madness that John, consumed by his obsession, stumbled upon a cavern hidden beneath a massive, ancient oak tree. The cavern's entrance was adorned with strange symbols that seemed to writhe and shift, and a cold, unnatural wind whispered from within. With a feverish determination, John entered the cavern, leaving the rest of the group behind. As he disappeared into the darkness, the very earth seemed to quake, and the forest itself let out a mournful cry. The group, now fractured and traumatized, emerged from the forest as suddenly as they had entered. Sarah, the last to leave, carried with her the weight of unanswered questions and a sense of profound loss. John was gone, swallowed by the living shadows that had haunted their journey. The townspeople of Ravenswood, despite their relief at the return of the explorers, found themselves plagued by a sense of unease. The forest had taken its toll, and its influence lingered, casting long shadows over the once peaceful town. As Sarah attempted to piece together the events that had transpired, she realized that the mystery of the living shadows was far from solved. There were too many questions, too many unexplained phenomena. The journal of Elias Blackwood hinted at a gateway to another realm, a realm where shadows held dominion, but the truth remained elusive. Ravenswood, with its cobblestone streets and historic buildings, would never be the same. The disappearances had left scars that ran deep, and the living shadows continued to cast their ominous presence over the town. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to uncover the truth behind the living shadows, even if it meant descending into the same darkness that had claimed John. She became consumed by her obsession, spending endless hours poring over Elias Blackwood's journal and researching ancient occult texts. Her determination led her back to the forest, the place where her nightmare had begun. Armed with knowledge and a sense of dread, she ventured deep into the woods, guided by the whispers that now seemed to beckon her forward. Days turned into weeks as Sarah delved deeper into the heart of the forest. The shadows danced around her, their forms growing more grotesque and menacing. They whispered secrets in a language she couldn't comprehend, their voices filling her mind with madness. In the depths of the forest, Sarah stumbled upon the same cavern where John had vanished. The symbols on its entrance seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and the cold wind that whispered from within sent shivers down her spine. Summoning all her courage, Sarah entered the cavern, her heart pounding in her chest. What she found inside was beyond comprehension, a realm of swirling darkness where the living shadows took on corporeal forms, their eyes gleaming with a hunger for blood. The living shadows surrounded Sarah, their twisted forms closing in on her. Panic gripped her, but she stood her ground, clutching Elias Blackwood's journal as if it were her lifeline. One shadow, larger and more malevolent than the rest, stepped forward. It spoke, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the cavern. "You seek answers, mortal. You seek the truth. But the truth comes at a price." Sarah knew she had come too far to turn back now. With a trembling voice, she asked, "What do you want?" The shadow's eyes gleamed with a malevolent light as it hissed, "Blood. A blood pact to bind your fate with ours. Only then will you know the truth." Sarah hesitated for a moment, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. But the need for answers, for closure, drove her forward. With a trembling hand, she cut her palm with a shard of stone and let her blood drip onto the cavern floor. The shadows converged on her, their forms merging with hers, their whispers filling her mind. It was as if she had become one with the darkness itself. Sarah's perception shifted, and she found herself in a realm of shadows and whispers. The living shadows guided her through the depths of their world, revealing the horrifying truth of Ravenswood. Long ago, the town had struck a dark bargain with the shadows, a pact of blood and power. In exchange for their loyalty and service, the shadows had granted the townsfolk prosperity and protection. But over the centuries, the shadows had grown hungry for more than just blood. They craved souls, and the disappearances were their way of feeding their insatiable hunger. Sarah saw flashes of the missing townspeople, their souls trapped in a nightmarish realm, tormented by the shadows for eternity. She understood that the only way to break the curse was to confront the shadow that had spoken to her and sever the pact. Sarah returned to the material world, her body covered in shadowy tendrils. The cavern had changed, its walls now adorned with even darker symbols. The malevolent shadow, the one that had spoken to her, stood before her. With newfound determination, Sarah challenged the shadow, demanding the release of the trapped souls and the end of the curse on Ravenswood. The shadow hissed and writhed, its form contorting in anger. A fierce battle of wills ensued as Sarah and the shadow engaged in a psychic struggle. Sarah's resolve was unyielding, fueled by her love for her town and her determination to free the trapped souls. In a burst of blinding light, Sarah managed to sever the shadow's connection to Ravenswood, breaking the centuries-old pact. The shadow let out a mournful wail before dissipating into nothingness, leaving behind only a trail of fading whispers. With the pact broken, the living shadows retreated, leaving Ravenswood forever. The trapped souls were finally set free, their anguished cries echoing through the forest as they ascended to the afterlife. Ravenswood, once shrouded in darkness, began to heal. The townspeople, now free from the curse, rebuilt their lives with a newfound sense of unity and gratitude. The memories of the disappearances and the living shadows faded into legend, a cautionary tale told to future generations. As for Sarah, she became a guardian of Ravenswood's history, ensuring that the dark past would never be forgotten. But she knew that the shadows would always linger at the edges of the town's consciousness, a reminder of the price that had been paid for prosperity. And so, the story of the mysterious disappearances came to an end, but the town of Ravenswood would forever carry the scars of its haunted past. The shadows had been banished, but their legacy would live on, a testament to the enduring struggle between light and darkness.
girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the bed.